Welcome to the North Texas Community Difference Frisco. Today's show is powered by the Difference Media LLC and is made possible by the following sponsors and local businesses: Brian Poduska and Real Property Management Focus, Paul Fisher and Certainty Home Loans. Today's show is hosted by Brian Poduska, owner of Real Property Management Focus, and co-hosted by Lendon Wilson, the creator of the Difference Radio live stream and podcast network. So sit back and relax as we spend time with some of North Texas' best and brightest business professionals and community leaders, because the North Texas Community Difference starts now.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is the North Texas Community Difference Frisco show. That's what you're watching, so thanks for joining us today. We have some really compelling guests on both the school leadership side of the agenda, and then from the business perspective as well, the local business leader perspective. So that is what we are all about, is highlighting and spotlighting local business owners, entrepreneurs, along with community leaders, school district leaders, as well as nonprofit leaders. So we've got two of those four things on the show for you today. I'm your co-host, Brian Poduska. Lendon Wilson is the other co-host, and he's the creator of The Difference radio show and podcast, which is kind of the underlying platform that we've been operating on for the last, 3.5 years or so. So without further ado, Lendon, why don't you jump on the screen and we'll kick it around a little bit. How you doing, my man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back on the North Texas Community Difference Frisco show in particular here. We've had a couple good shows over the last month or so. With the first one, we had Mayor Jeff Cheney on to help kick off the North Texas Community Difference Frisco show. A few weeks ago, we had the crew from the Leadership Frisco team that helped, that basically put on the fundraiser that happened earlier this week on Monday, which, the beneficiary of that sponsor was two organizations that are catering to the needs of special needs individuals after they get over the age of 18. So it was great to have them on the show to spotlight their effort. I can tell you the fundraiser that they ran on Monday was first class, excellent, super well attended. It was at Topgolf on Monday night, and they raised, I want to say, right around $50,000 combined between those two organizations. So it was a fantastic event to be at, to be a part of, at least in a small way. Those guys did a fantastic job putting it on, and really drove a big difference and made a huge difference for those two organizations. So if we played a little bit of piece in that success, I don't know if we can claim that, but I hope we did. And that's exactly kind of the thing that we're trying to get at with the North Texas Community Difference show.
You're right. One of the communities around Dallas, the DFW area, there's so many incredible people and incredible things that are happening. And for a lot of us, we're just not in the loop to know and hear about what's going on. And that's really what the community difference is about with what we're doing, is to try to bring that awareness of all the community activities, what's going on in community leadership, which is so vital to all of us. And then we also focus a lot on our small business and entrepreneurs within the community that are doing a lot more than a lot of people understand and give them credit for. So we're excited about what we're doing with the community difference and the people that are partnering with us and getting involved in this. And we it's been growing, Brian, and really appreciate you for all you've done with us and for us. And we're looking forward to even more growth in the future, and being able to as cheesy as it sounds, help make the difference, be a part of the difference in these communities.
I tell you, it may sound cheesy, but there's nothing cheesy about it, because that's been the goal from day one, right? The things that make the difference in business's life was the original platform that you created and that we kind of jumped on and have been promoting ever since. And I think that still holds true. And with as you've grown and as we've grown as a community, bringing these community different shows on, I think is fantastic, and it gives really the lens and the spotlight and the ability to put that spotlight on that local community and grassroots efforts for various different things. So that's what I'm most excited about, is that it's hopefully uplifting the local community from the 4 pillars that we've kind of talked about.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because you mentioned the original concept of what we were doing, and this thing has kind of been like a rodeo for both of us, right? I mean, it takes on a life of its own, and we kind of have to grab a hold and hold on to it. But it's been revealing to us and so many people that have been involved in the difference and supported the difference of all the opportunities. And I think that's really where we have allowed this format to take us, is to the opportunities that can help the most people in the best way possible, that seem to get left out and left behind sometimes. And so, without getting on that soapbox, many of us are frustrated with, your mainstream media and kind of the agenda that they have. And we come to everybody with no agenda. It's just, here's the good people doing good things. And we feel like everybody should know about it. And I think that can uh, help strengthen the unity of our communities and make all the wonderful places that we already live even better.
Well said. I agree with all that. And if you see Lendon or I looking down and away from the camera, it's because I was doing so, just sharing out our show, our Facebook Live link. So if you're hopefully if you've caught that link and you're joining and tuning in, you're watching the North Texas Community Difference Frisco show. As we talked about in the upfront intro, we do have some awesome guests today, both from a couple different pillars of the underlying pillars of the show. So, Lendon, I think we're probably ready to bring on our first guest. Is that a true statement?
We are ready. And just real quick, Brian's right. If I'm looking not directly at the camera, I've got about 3 screens going with a cell phone that we're sharing this out to make sure that we get to the audience that we love to reach. So don't think that I'm not paying attention or Brian's not paying attention. It's just an active show. Honestly, today I normally produce. You hardly ever see me on camera, but I'm producing and semi-hosting today. So we'll do the best we can. But yeah, it's time, man. Bring them on. Let's hear about it.
All right, awesome. Well, our guests today, our first 2 guests today, are members of the Frisco community, and they are running for open seats in the Frisco ISD Board of Trustees. And we wanted to bring them on to help them, again, share their story, tell us why they're getting involved, and just put a little bit of personality behind a name on a ballot. So without further ado, let's bring in Danette Davis and Mark Hill. Hey, guys, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Good morning.
Good morning. Doing well. Thank you for having us today.
Awesome. Good morning to you guys. Thank you for joining the show. There's no shortage of electricity around this year's open seats on the Board of Trustees for Frisco ISD. To be honest, I mean, I'm a Frisco resident, and I've heard some of the underlying stories and some of the underlying I guess issues that are out there. So I'm really interested to dive into this topic with you guys. So let's just start at a very high level on the first, to dive into this election and get into some of the details as we go. But Danette, why don't you start? Ladies first, of course. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about who you are, why you decided to run for the open seat, and just give a little bit of background on yourself.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me today. I am actually an incumbent. I have served on the Frisco Independent School District Board of Trustees for the past 2.5 years. That was 869 days to date. That's how long I've been
counting.
And so for the past 869 days, I've worked tirelessly alongside my colleagues to ensure that our teachers and students within Frisco Independent School District receive the best of the best, that being policy, governance, and just ensuring that our district continues to be the top district in the state of Texas. During my first term, I worked to help open 3 schools. I voted to approve our long-awaited Performing Arts Center, which is underway. And I also served as a liaison between the school board and the Frisco Education Foundation as a board member. I have 3 girls that have matriculated through Frisco ISD. My oldest is currently flying planes at the University of Oklahoma, and we have a graduate that is scheduled to walk across the stage in May. And so I'm really happy to be here. Excited to share why I want to continue to serve within Frisco ISD and the Frisco community. So thank you again for having me.
Awesome. No, you're very welcome. And great that you've had students, your kiddos, go through the system. I'm in the same boat myself. I've got 3 kids, 2 twins who are 18. They just turned 18, and they're going to be graduating from Frisco High here in the next month or so.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow.
So
my seniors at Frisco High.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, our kiddos probably know each other then.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So, and then my youngest, she's a 8th grader. She's going to be graduating from Hunt. So, I know they've all been very successful, done very well in academically, and then my 2 are going to college. So the system works for sure. I know that firsthand. Obviously, your kiddos did great too, Danette. So we'll get into a little bit more of that later. Let's give Mark a chance to tell his story. Mark, why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself? Tell us why you decided to jump into the race, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. So I'm running for place 5. It is an open seat. The current incumbent, Debbie Gillespie, has decided not to run again. And so I've lived here for about 20 years, have made just great relationships with the city, with the district, have made many friends here. Brian, I know you mentioned Jason Young, and I also went through the Leadership Frisco program, which you referenced earlier. They did just an amazing job on Monday with this class's program. And so I've just kind of been engaged with the community for a long time. My wife and I have lived here for 18, 19 years. I have volunteered on the board of the Frisco Education Foundation for the last 6 or so years. Kind of allowed me an opportunity, Brian, to kind of see the district, get into a lot of the campuses, see a lot of the teachers, see a lot of our amazing students. Just really, really admired the quality of the ISD at pretty much every level. It's kind of where my civic volunteerism has gone for the last 6 or 7 years. And so, with a lot of the, disruptions and other stuff with school districts and other elections over the last year or 2, I just kind of felt compelled to get involved, try to be a reasonable voice in the campaign, in the process, one that cares really about the city, cares about the school district and its continued success. Like Danette said, we're very lucky to have such a quality school district, especially for one of our size with 67,000 plus students. That's not an easy task. And I think everybody who probably watches your show knows that a lot of people move to Frisco because of its school district. And so I'm just trying to be the positive voice here to kind of help keep that good thing going, Brian. And that's really what compelled me to run.
Gotcha. And I think, going back on what you just said, Mark, I think there's a couple key nuggets there. One being the fact that people move to Frisco for the ISD, right? That's been the case ever since. I've been here less time than you have. So you've been here 20 years. We've been here about 11. And,
yeah.
We did our exploration of all the different suburbs to which we were going to potentially move to, and Frisco bubbled to the top for many reasons. But, first and foremost for us, when we moved here, we had 3 young kids, and Frisco ISD was the number one reason. and I think that's true for the vast majority of families that are moving here at any case. You also mentioned, recent disruptions and things like that. So I know there's been some negative publicity, and I go back to, Danette, you've been on the board for the last, couple of years. We've seen a tremendous amount of growth in the city. We've seen a tremendous amount of successes with the Frisco ISD system across those 20 years, but certainly that's continued over the last couple. So talk to me about those disruptions and what you guys see there, and how much of that is real and how much of that is just what I'll call, for lack of a better term, fake news.
So I can share with you that over the past year and a half, we have experienced a disruptance in our school board meetings regularly, to the point in which we rarely discuss children. When I was initially elected in December of 2020, I came in during the COVID year, where May municipal elections were pushed to November. And so I was on that November ballot, being sworn in December of 2020. And so over the past year and a half, as I've shared before, we have had a disruption of things that are a part of the national agenda, if you will, things that you can see if you're watching the news take place across the country. The initial concerns that were coming to us in the board meetings were, well, this is happening in other places and we don't want it to happen in Frisco ISD. And then it kind of transitioned into, well, this is happening. And then, there were a lot of false concerns being given that were not documented, things that we were not able to find on a campus or an administrative or a district level. And I like the term that you used, fake news, because that's exactly what it is. Frisco ISD is one of the top rated districts, not only in Texas, but in the world. And while we have had tremendous growth over the past 2 to 3 decades, I am here to share with you that the things that are being shared in light and making Frisco ISD a dark place are things that you kind of look at other school districts and see a repeat pattern. And those are the things that we're battling right now. And it's been for the past year and a half.
Gotcha. Well, that helps add a little bit of color to it. And I think I don't know the numbers, but what I do know is if you look at the rankings, they're still top notch. So there's got to be other metrics out there that I'm not aware of that you guys see on a very regular basis that prove that out, right? The data doesn't lie.
No.
So as an educated voter, you have to know, okay, what do the numbers say? What do the rankings say? And who are the ones that are going to keep that at the top of the list? And I, like I said, it's been at the top of the list for the last 20 plus years. And, I have no doubt it'll stay there based on everything that I've heard from the leadership of the Frisco ISD. We did have a couple, or we had a candidate on, what was it, last year, Lendon, I think, who's currently on the Frisco ISD board as well.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that all this noise going on the outside, but let's look at the real facts here and look at the rankings and look at the numbers and make our decision that way. Mark, do you have anything to add to what Danette very, very eloquently kind of talked about?
Yeah, I think I would echo kind of getting the focus back on issues that are important to not only Brian, an excellent district, but a district that's still growing. We have 75 campuses, more coming on each year. Frisco ISD is the largest employer in the city of Frisco. And so when you have such a large student population, you have a large employee base, you have so many facilities throughout the city, there's a lot of needs there that I think, we need to be focusing on more than some of these other political and other types of issues. And really it comes down to student achievement. I mean, we have so many quality students. We have parents that really care. We have some great educators here, and they want that as well. And we've been lucky enough to have that for so long. And we've had good relationships with the city for so long. It's resulted in Frisco ISD having the lowest, or one of the very lowest ISD tax rates in North Texas, while also keeping some of the very best facilities and services of any school district. That's a very rare combo that people should know about. We should be praising that. We should be doing everything we can to keep that. That's not easily done when you have a district of our size. And so I think as we go on, and there's obviously budget concerns with public education and things of that nature, we've got a tall task ahead of us. And I think it's incumbent on us and whoever is on the board to really focus on student achievement and this quality maintenance for years to come.
Got it. Well, that makes a ton of sense. And I know we've got quite a bit of content for the remainder of the show. But what I do want to do is give you guys just a couple minutes, maybe a piece, and just tell me or tell the audience what are your main goals as you get elected, and as you, or in your case, Danette, as you continue on the board. What are your main priorities, from a leadership standpoint, and what you want to represent to the community?
Well, thank you for asking that. And so I'll start by just sharing, as a district, we've been met with several challenges, from COVID-19 to the most challenging of all, which is teacher retention and recruitment. And so when I joined the board of trustees, we were in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as a board, we focused on ESSER funding to ensure that the physical and mental health of our students and staff were cared for. We approved funds and they were allocated to that mental and physical health focus by increasing the social workers and counselors, tutoring services, and mentoring programming to address behavior problems that we were having when students were coming back into the district after the COVID pandemic. For our staff, I think the highlight of what we were able to do during that time was approving additional sick days and approving increasing the financial incentives for the retention. Those are some of the things that we have been busy working on over the past 2.5 years. As a trustee, my goal is to continue in the efforts of making sure that our students and teachers have a safe place to have education take place, to continue to grow and ensure that our buildings that we're opening are suitable for not only our students, but for our teachers. I think for me, moving forward, as it relates to my goals and my promise as I'm reelected, is to just make sure that we focus intentionally on the teacher retention piece of it, because teacher retention right now is at an all-time low. One of the things that we talk about and frequently in every setting is that while it's a national issue and even a state issue, Frisco ISD is one of the lowest. We don't have a very high turnover rate, despite what some of the rhetoric may be. My focus moving forward is to make sure that we are continuing to bring quality teachers into the district, and that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that we retain them, making sure that their needs are met and that they are safe and feel secure within our district.
Well, that's a great recap. I think those are fantastic points. And Mark, I'd ask you same thing. What are your main points and objectives as you get elected, and what you want for the community?
I'm going to echo Danette on the retention issue, and I'll talk about that in a second. I guess I would also add, though, Brian, we've got the legislature's in session right now at the state level. I think budget concerns this year for public education funding teacher funding, adequate compensation. Those things are important right now. So those are going to be issues that we're going to need to really focus on, I imagine, not just this year, but in coming years. I think the other issue too, in talking about safety, is Frisco is known for having very safe campuses, but as we're all aware, that safety has a bunch of different components to it. Behavioral, mental health, things of that nature, especially post-pandemic, I know are on the rise and of a concern. And so how our very large school district and very diverse student population addresses that, I think is going to need to be a priority, and making sure that we are forward looking on that in a constructive way. That is a very important piece of safety. I think then I would, again, just circle back to what I would also echo is a really top priority, and that's teacher retention. And I would also add to that teacher recruitment. We are growing still. And so being able to keep the good ones and find the next wave or the next set of good teachers as we continue to grow, and making sure we're diligent about that is so important. It has so many other consequences. If you talk to parents, you talk to teacher morale, these things matter, and making sure that we're attentive to that in a real meaningful way, especially as other districts, we're not the only district growing. We have been taking good teachers away from other districts for years as we have grown. Well, guess what? Now others around us are doing that to us. And there's so many examples of that as Prosper, Salina, and all of our, neighboring cities grow. They know where a lot of the good teachers are. And whether it's because a teacher lives there and is closer to where they're at, or because they're getting a promotion, we're now the subject of getting people poached from us. And so we've just got to do everything we can to make sure we're keeping as many good ones, and then we're going after and getting the next wave of good ones. And so, like Danette said, that's paramount, and it's going to be a top priority for sure.
Yep, that makes total sense. And I guess we probably did the same thing to probably Plano 20 years ago when we were coaching their teachers. So no, those are fantastic points. All right, so great points on what your platforms are. How do we early voting's open, correct?
Yes, going on right now.
Yep, so you can get out there. All right, there we go. Thank you, Lendon, for pulling that up. So the actual election itself, May 6th, I believe it's a Saturday, right? And early voting is open now. How does one go about placing their early votes?
You can actually go and log in to find out where your voting location, or what place your address into the county voting system, and they will give you a list of places where you can actually go and vote. Frisco ISD feeds into both Denton and Collin counties. And so it is very important that you do your research before you go to the polls. We don't want you to have any challenges with getting in to vote. Once you go and log in and find your voting location, in addition to voting within the Frisco ISD race, there are other things that you will probably need to look up before you cast your vote. Most city municipal races are taking place as well. And then I know within the city of Frisco, we have a bond that is that will be on our ballot. And so happy voting.
Yeah, and Brian, I would add to that too. Early voting is going on right now all week, 8 to 5. As Danette said, if we do split Collin and Denton, there's parts. So your audience is aware, there's parts of McKinney and North Plano that are in FISD as well. And so there are numerous locations, fire stations, Collin College, where you can early vote 8 to 5 the rest of this week, as well as all day Saturday. And Denton also votes on Sunday. And so been out there all week, no lines at all. You're in and out in 2 or 3 minutes. It's super simple. I would encourage everybody to take some time, take a break, take during lunch, whenever. Get it out of the way now, because as we get closer to, certainly on election day on May 6th, But the rest of this week and weekend, you're going to have plenty of time to get in there, and it's super easy.
I'd also just add that voting early is the most beneficial because on election day, we receive the early voting numbers when polls actually close. And so that definitely helps people to determine where they stand and how much they'll need for election day in order to earn their seats in their particular races.
Gotcha. Yeah, and Mark, I've voted early in the past, and it is absolutely the way to go. This election in particular shouldn't have huge lines on the actual election day, but like you said, you can be in and out in a couple minutes, and it's pretty easy peasy. So, and then that good point on the it gets you an early read, maybe gives you an idea of where you need to put a little bit of presence. Those are great points. Like you said, get out and vote. So. I want to thank you guys both for coming on the show today. Pleasure to have you. Pleasure to learn more about you guys individually, and then obviously what your plans are for the Frisco ISD community. And I personally and most people who did moved here for the school system. So there's a great amount of passion. And Danette, thank you for your service that you've already done. Good luck to you both. On the election, and again, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian and team.
All right. With that, Lendon, I think we do have a commercial break, and then we will get into something that everybody who has any sort of credit card transactions associated with their business needs to know on the back end. So stay tuned for that. Lendon, hit the commercial.
The Difference Radio, live stream, and podcast. The voice of small businesses and the communities they serve.
Over the last 24 months, The Difference has evolved into a powerful internet media company that helps small businesses and local communities and nonprofit organizations create, produce, broadcast, and distribute a variety of shows, all designed to empower our communities, the businesses, the people, the places, and the events that make our cities, communities, and the folks that live there so very special.
With almost 1.5 million viewers and listeners in the last 2 years, The Difference and its unique strategy of positive impact branding has helped communities and small businesses be seen, be heard, and be remembered.
In a world that is consumed with negative press, media manipulation, and propaganda, The Difference, along with many others who believe in and support The Difference, understand that there is no better way to make the difference in our communities than to highlight the unsung heroes and high achievers that call our towns and communities home. And we wanted to create a platform that does just that. One that brings awareness to and reminds folks of the goodness that lives within so many of us and our neighbors.
And don't forget to hit that like, follow, and subscribe button and tune in each week so you can experience the difference.
It's kind of good seeing that commercial, and it's a little bit nostalgic because it's an older one, and I know we've got a lot of really neat opportunities coming up with The Difference, and really a huge opportunity. I don't know if we want to touch on that just yet, or maybe give a little tease as far as what's coming down the stream, but I know we have a lot of momentum behind it.
We do. And I'm glad you mentioned it because I think it's a good time to tease out a little bit. But, obviously, Brian, you and I mean, over the last 3 years, along with Nathan, several others that have been a part of The Difference, we've learned how to use The Difference as a way to improve not only our personal lives, but our professional lives and build better relationships, which when you have better relationships makes the community better. And so we are preparing now to create what we're going to be calling Pod Connect. And Pod Connect is a networking organization that is going to be utilizing radio live stream and podcasting as its platform. A lot of the traditional networking organizations do some fantastic things, but they're not utilizing technology to the fullest. And so we figured out through what we've been doing, basically, we've already proven that it works, is that by utilizing podcasting, radio shows, and live streaming, not only are we able to connect with other professionals within our organization, but we take it outside of the closed door sessions and we do it live so that the community and the consumers also see who we are. And so it creates a broader opportunity and a broader network for people to get to know us in the community, for us to meet community leaders and have some engagement and some participation on what's going on within the communities. And it just makes us overall a better professional and business within that community.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've been at it with you since the inception of the difference, and it's evolved to something that I frankly didn't even think was possible, and I think it's I don't know if revolutionary is a little too extreme of a word, but it's exactly that.
I would say progressive, and I hate that word progressive because it's overused in all the wrong ways. Right. But progress is inevitable. And it's just, as I've always sat within those networking groups, I'm like, man, these stories, these people, these testimonies, how great would it be if 50% of the community that we're sitting in heard that? Right. How much of an impact would it have on your business? How many other businesses would be interested in participating and engaging with you as a business owner if they heard it? But unfortunately, they're not attending those meetings. And so now we can show we can be a resource for other business owners. We can be a resource for for the consumers within the community, not just about our business, but talking to the people in the school board, talking to the political leaders and leadership on what's going on that's going to have an economic impact that's going to impact everybody. Because that's the thing we don't realize is that those leaders that are sitting at City Hall and that are involved in the decision making, whether it's with the school boards and our children, it's all impacting us. And as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as professionals within that community, uniting together, that carries a lot of weight and it carries a lot of opportunity for us all. And so we feel like that we can bring that together, doing what we do on a daily basis anyway, and just doing it in a public forum so that people can go, man, it's kind of like the know, like, and trust factor, right? Everybody that's ever been a professional that is a professional has heard that. You've got to create a know, like, and trust factor. Well, we're doing that with thousands of people watching all at the same time.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Is you do a showcase in whatever networking group you may be in, and you get to share your story, your personality for a limited time to, let's call it 15 to 20 to maybe up to 60 or 80 people in a room. And that's at the very high end, right? So there are some networking groups that have that size. But the ability to share it with literally thousands, and it's there in perpetuity if you want it to be. So, when I say thousands, I'm not kidding. It's out there on your Facebook page, YouTube, whatever venue you may want to share it through. It's there for you to do that. So
I got something I want to share that not even you know. So this morning I was working on creating some video content, and I needed a clearer picture of you. So I type in Brian Poduska on Google, and guess what pops up in a lit? I mean, just
God only knows.
I went to no, it was like, but it's images, right? I went to images of Brian Poduska. Brian, all the shows you've been on, there's screenshots of them. We didn't put that there.
Interesting.
We didn't create that.
No,
it's just there. It's Real Talk. It's the sports show. It's the other shows that you've been on. Somehow, some way, that's the way the internet works, right? So if I'm trying to figure out who this Brian Poduska guy is that's with Real Property Management, or he's a real estate agent, and I Google you and this content starts popping up, that's a great way to be vetted.
That's interesting. Absolutely. I never knew that, number one. And you're right. We haven't put out any still photos or anything like that out for content at all. It's just been, okay, here's the show and let's publish it. And however that got there, that's a little frightening. I guess in a good way in this case. But yeah,
I didn't see anything that would get you in trouble or anything like that. So you're safe. You're safe.
I try to keep that.
It just kind of shocked me because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's and I guess that's what we were saying before. We keep learning and understanding the value of these podcasts and how impactful they can be for small business owners. And this is with no effort of yours, no effort of mine. There is starting to be a digital portfolio of Brian Poduska that is being developed through the shows that you're doing, the participation that you're having, and that we feel we can bring that to the Pod Connect as well. So. But yeah, one last thing to touch on that, and we're going to bring our guest in. I know that they're ready to go, and I'm ready to hear about it. Trey touched on it a little bit yesterday, but we had someone back the first year that was doing some advertising on one of the shows, and she recently contacted me after COVID hit, things changed a little bit, different things happen. Irregardless, she contacted me. She goes, I haven't paid or advertised or been a part of the difference now in 2 years. And I just got a new client because of one of the shows you did 2 years ago that I'd advertised on. And so she invested that money and it's still paying a return 2 years later. So yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. There's just so many benefits to it, but enough about that. Let's bring on the next two guests. You know them well. You've been in networking groups with both of them. Introduced me actually to one. We have Trey Rush and Matthew McReynolds. I'm going to let them tell a little bit about what they do as we bring them in. And then we'll probably let Matt go first and talk a little bit about Mosquito Joe. And then we'll bring on Trey, let him talk a little bit about what he does. And then he's going to share some fascinating information that I'm not sure consumers don't even need to know about it. But here they are. Here's Matthew and Trey. Welcome to the show, guys.
What's up, fellas?
How's it going?
Trey, you're on mute. I don't know if you're aware, but you are on mute.
Just like on Zoom, everybody, there's at least one who does it.
I guess I'm that guy.
I would rather be the guy on mute than the person that's not on mute and needs to be.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, fellas, appreciate, especially last minute, agreeing to be on the show. This was kind of a last minute put together show. And because, with elections coming up, we had a need to get some information out there. And so we do that more often than not, I guess, Brian, is we'll throw a show together last minute and try again, because that's what we're here for, to, make the difference, help somebody out. So thank you guys for being on. Matt, you and I met through Brian maybe a month ago and had a great conversation and appreciate you being here. I want to give you a few minutes to talk about who you are, talk about Mosquito Joe, and then just share a little bit about this whole franchising thing. It's kind of unique because when I first talked to you on the phone, I didn't realize that you are as young as you are, or as young as you appear to be. And so that was even more impressive that you have taken such an ambitious and leadership role as an entrepreneur. And so I want you to share a little bit about that, if you will.
And well, I appreciate that. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the show. I love what you guys are doing. So yeah, my name is Matthew McReynolds. I'm from Pflugerville, Texas, just north of Austin. Went to Wheaton College outside of Chicago, went to school, lived in the Chicago area for about 5 years, moved to DFW in 2014, and I've lived all over the Metroplex since then. So, man, coming on almost 10 years been out here, and it's been great seeing the different communities grow. My experience career-wise outside of being a business owner is working in the inner city in education and athletics. I worked for two different schools, one in Chicago Hope Academy, and then in South Dallas, Cornerstone Crossroads Academy, where I wore a lot of hats. I was a life coach, leadership teacher. We started a basketball team, running club. I was just always a Swiss Army knife in these different organizations, but it was, I had the opportunity to develop young people and be the mentor that a lot of them were missing in their life. And so it's a very gratifying field, but I've always been entrepreneurial. In 2016, my dad, who was working in corporate America, Apple Computer at the time, was looking at franchising. And the franchising model is great for the individual who might be in transition, that knows that they want to start their own business, but they haven't crafted their own skill that they feel comfortable selling, or maybe they don't have the systems in place that you would get. So they look to franchising. So he saw Mosquito Joe as a brand that is a recurring service model. It is no contract, so you have to prove yourself over and over. It's in DFW, so it's always warm and moist, and there's a lot of mosquitoes, so there's always going to be a demand. And he went all in. My parents were still living in Pflugerville. Again, I'd been in DFW for a couple years, and he presented me the opportunity to come in as a 50-50 partner with him. He would put in the finances, and I would put in the blood, the sweat, the tears, and I gave just about every bit of that I've got in me in the process so far. So we started with 4 territories. We expanded to 6, and now we're looking to sell off some. So I've been all over in the building, the buying, the acquiring, the selling that you could do in business ownership. I've had my team has been up to 20 people, but now our mindset is to be lean and mean and be the best at what we do. And it's been a great experience. And now, because we have a leadership and management team established, we're looking at ways that we can integrate vertically with other services and things that we can do with our operational model. So, it's been a great journey. Before I got the job at Cornerstone in South Dallas, I had applied and got accepted to go get my MBA, and I didn't do it. I didn't register for classes because I got the job at Cornerstone. And this has been such an amazing educational experience that still waiting to see the ROI on the investment, though. It's
it takes a while. It takes a while. Not a lot of people know that when they get into business ownership, and that's a lesson that we've definitely learned over the years. So yeah, that's my story. There's actually an old saying that says it took me 20 years to become an overnight success. So
amen.
Don't give up.
Amen.
We got about 13. That's okay. We got about 13 minutes. I want to make sure we get Trey some time. And I do have something to ask you before we get off air, though, Matt. But I want to bring in Trey now. Trey and I have known each other for a while, and really appreciate you being on the show today, Trey. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, what Paytech Plus is all about, and then I want you to share with us as much information as we can in the next 9 minutes.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I'm going to make the intro short and sweet because, to your point, I have some info that we definitely do need to get out. I'm actually coming up on my 10th year in the payment space. I actually started with a company with a mutual acquaintance of ours, very close to you, that made the introduction. And just small world, happened to find out that you were part of all the networking circles that I was already in. You were right down the block and just hadn't crossed paths yet. So, Brian knows kind of what I'm talking about there. So very small world, very cool to find that out. I started working for a major processing firm, kind of cut my teeth that way, and learned all about the industry and how the dark side to it and a lot of the negatives that come with that. And it's one of those industries that has a lot of negative stigma to it that it's earned, quite frankly. It's not very customer driven. It's very profit driven. It's more about, how many accounts can you sell versus lose, instead of really taking care of your customers. And I went out on my own and really wanted to kind of try to change that. And I felt like I've made a decent enough splash so far, and, looking forward to how far I can take that. But as far as kind of what you and I were talking about, and man, I just mentioned it, and it's probably more my fault, but I kind of started talking about it for about 25, 30 minutes. What's happened is Visa, and actually, before I get into that, I'm going to say I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. I do not work for Visa, represent Visa. This is my professional interpretation and opinions that have been formed based on talking to executives at processing companies and other professionals in the industry. So before I say anything else, I'm going to get that out there. What I found out and what is going on is, as of April 15th, Visa has changed their surcharge guidelines. Now, why is this important? There's a very short backstory. About a decade ago, there was a court case that went to the Supreme Court where Visa lost. Visa does not like pass-through type programs, meaning adding on a fee or passing on the cost to accept a credit card to cardholders. Business owners have been doing that for a while. Visa thought that it would damage their brand, and so they fought that tooth and nail. And they lost in the Supreme Court. And of that, a program called compliant surcharging was born, which is basically Visa's kind of rules and guidelines for saying, okay, you can do that under these strict, specific rules. Okay, so the processors were like, okay, well, the Durbin Amendment and the Constitution says that we have the free speech rights to communicate our pricing to our customers however they want, and they'd be correct. Again, not a lawyer, not legal advice, but if you read the Durbin Amendment, it takes about 2 minutes. Most people would come away with that same thought process. So there's this weird gray area between what the law says you can do and what Visa says you can do. And Visa is so big that it creates kind of this gray area. And so what has happened is these processing companies have come up with the alternate programs that really don't meet the Visa guidelines. One of them, which was very popular, is called cash discounting. Sold a lot, millions and millions of accounts sold under this name, which is basically when the small business owner says, okay, we're going to add a processing fee to every transaction. Cash, credit, doesn't matter. But then if you pay cash, we take it away. So it ends up you're paying more for a card and you pay less with cash, but they don't have to say, I'm charging you more for using a card. It was a roundabout way of getting around it, but it was still charging people more to use a card. So, and what has happened is Visa has kind of known about it. I mean, they definitely knew about it, but it was kind of like jaywalking, or like when you speed on the highway. You know, everyone knows, like, I can go, if the sign says 55 miles an hour, I could really go 60 and probably be okay. No one's going to pull me over. It's like an unwritten rule. Well, it's kind of how it's been in this space, but now all of a sudden it's 1 mile an hour over and you're getting popped. And so what's going on is Visa has said that as of April 15th, the most that you could charge has been lowered from 4% down to 3%. Now, why is this important? Because all these cash discounting programs were all set at 4%. And so now it makes it much easier for Visa to know which of these programs are compliant and which ones aren't. So it makes enforcement much, much, much easier. And so what they've also clarified is that no matter what verbiage you use, what kind of program, or how you spin it, or how you dress it up, it doesn't matter. If your customer walks up to the counter or pays an invoice, or however they pay, wherever they check out, if they pay more at the time of checkout than what has been advertised or posted, so more than what's on the shelf, more than what's on the menu, more than what's in your invoice, that's a surcharge now. There's no getting around that. And if you do that, you are subject to surcharge rules. And the main rules, there's more, but the main two are this: you can't charge more than 3%, And the biggest one is you can't charge it on a debit card. And that is the big deal. So all these cash discount programs add that fee to all the cards. Doesn't matter. If it's a card, you pay it. That is not compliant now. Or it hasn't been compliant with surcharge ever. But under cash discount, that's what they've been doing. So it's going to, again, make it much easier to find these programs out there. Now, what's going on is that Visa has put out a structure of fines. And so they will be fining processing companies that are found to be, that their merchants are doing this. Now, what's being reported is you get a warning. I've heard some people saying that they got a warning. I've heard other people say there was no warning, and the first fine was $5,000. The second fine is $25,000. It might be 10. Actually, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say it's $25,000. And the third or final is your account gets shut down. You get put on what's called a match list, which is a blacklist. You can't process cards anymore. No processor will touch you if this isn't resolved. So it is a big deal. And what's the main issue, I guess you would say, for lack of a better word, is that this is all being communicated directly to the processing companies. There's no press release. It's very hard to actually find information on it. I actually contacted Visa directly to their customer service department, which obviously I didn't get very far. But I've not talked to any Visa executives directly or anything like that. But most of the processors, I'm being told, have NDAs, like they're not able to disclose a lot of the language that they're passing along. And the problem with that is, if you go down the chain, the next link in that chain is down to the processor, and their direct customer is the small business owner. And the agreement that has been signed by that small business owner to process cards says that if there's any additional cost of acceptance, fines, penalties, otherwise, the processor absolutely has the right to pass that down to the business owner. And if the business owner doesn't pay, guess what? They get shut down. So this will indirectly affect every business owner that is doing it. And there's so many business owners out there. And I'm talking major chains. Like, I'm not going to name anybody, but I'm talking major chains that I've seen using these programs, and they're adding cost to accept a card, and they're not following those surcharge guidelines because they don't know any better. I have other agents and companies that are, talking to me about it, and they hardly know what's going on. So how can we expect a small business owner to understand all these, rules and guidelines for surcharging? So
real quick, Trey, because we got just a couple minutes left. I want to make sure I get, a question in. How would a small business, do they need to talk to their processor? I mean, is the processor going to talk to them? How do you protect yourself? Real quick, we got about 1 minute, and then we got to be able to close out.
Okay, so the first thing is your system adding a cost to a debit card? That's the first thing. If it is, you got a problem. If you look at your receipt and your line item, or if you look at your receipt and it's adding a line item, so $10 base and then an additional 30 cents or $1 to accept a card, and it's a debit card, you got a problem. That's the first thing to really look at. Beyond that, I would definitely say reach out to your processor, see what kind of information you can get out of them. And I'm more than willing to talk to anybody that has any questions. We can dive into it, and we can assess the best we can.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. Make sure if you do have a question, if you're watching, a business owner, whatever, Trey's information has been scrolling, so you're going to know a little bit about that. Got one last question I'm going to ask Matthew. Matthew, you're on mute in case you didn't know, and then I'm going to let Brian, I'm going to let you close this out. So Matthew, I see on your board, this is what I love about people that don't use green screens and that have a whiteboard in their office, because I love reading it. You have got on there, and I want to see if we're on the same page. Right person, right seats, right bus.
That's right.
Where did you hear that? Where did you hear that?
Man, so I'm big in EOS traction. The first time I heard this concept was from my college football coach. He would add a couple things to it as well, but I integrate traction and EOS in my company. Right people, right seats. Jim Collins and Good to Great talks about it as well. It's important, man. When you're building the culture, when you're building the team, you got to have people that get it, want it, and have the capacity to do what you're asking them to. So, I mean, I could talk about that all day.
Well, the reason I said is because Nick Saban has been known for that for probably 20, 25 years. And there, if you look it up on Google, there's actually a video of him talking about that, and it's powerful.
There it is.
That's all the time we got. We're a little bit over. Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you close this out. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Everybody pay attention. We're going to be doing the Pod Connect rollout very, very soon. We've already got the shows set up for it. So watch for that. If you are a small business owner and you want to be seen, be heard, and be remembered, this could be it for you. So Brian, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lendon. Great show. Thanks, guys, for joining on the back end of the show. If you didn't catch the first end of the show, we will be in syndication here in about an hour after we are live. So please do tune in. Some really important information that you needed to hear if you didn't catch it on the upcoming Frisco ISD trustee board positions. The election is May 6th, Saturday, but the early voting is already open. So get out there, rock the vote, and be educated. As Lendon mentioned, also Pod Connect coming up. We'll have a lot more information on it, but it's a fantastic opportunity for anybody who's a business owner and is looking to network through a podcast. Pretty revolutionary. With that being said, we'll see you on the next North Texas Community Difference Frisco show, and as well as some others that I'll be hosting or co-hosting with Nathan Smith and Lendon. Until then, take care. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you for tuning in and watching our show. If you would like to see our next show, or more shows like this one, just click the QR code and go to show schedules, or just follow and subscribe to our channels to get updates and notifications of this show, and many others like it.